you'll see this is very strongly typed, strictly typed language here. So this is about me. I've worked for ExxonMobil now for 33 and a half years. This is petrochemical research organization. And since I'm retiring, maybe I'll just go and change it to ExxonMobil. There was this thing with document clearance, and I think that's kind of loosened up a bit. But in any event, so I'm retiring in May. So, what I do in my free time is all these things here. So I've written for InfoQ for the last 7 years. I'm currently the lead editor for the Java space. And then for 22 years, I've been running a Java user group, which is now the Garden State Java user group. We're a nonprofit, and we have monthly meetings, etc. But we evolved from the old ACG&J Java group. That's a long story. But yeah, we went on our own as a nonprofit in 2020. So I'm one of the co-directors. So we have a great leadership team. It's just it's great experience. So Jakarta EE is the open source version of Java, Enterprise Edition. So that was what they had. Oracle or Sun Microsystems, and then Oracle had the Java Enterprise Edition, and that's where you can obviously make your more enterprise applications and such. It's above and beyond the normal Java development kit. So this is an organization, sort of just a bunch of folks that want to be part of this to advocate for Jakarta EE. Right? Jakarta is the open source version of Java. So that's the because Java EE was closed source. And then when Java EE 8 came out in 2017, they donated to the Eclipse Foundation. It was open source, but they had to rename it because of branding.
So closed source on island.
Right.
No open source. Why didn't they just name Clojure or the other?
Well, this was actually a community effort. There was a lot of voting. Developers had a chance to contribute to the new name. And because Jakarta was actually used for an Apache, the Apache Software Foundation, they had the Apache Jakarta Commons or something, which encapsulated a whole bunch of other little projects. I think Maven was one of them at the time, but then they all wound up having their own top level, projects. So the Jakarta name went away, for a number of years, and then so then now it's used for this. So. And then part of the specifications under Jakarta EE are, one is NoSQL and the other one's data. This one's been around a couple of years, and this one only came out last summer. And I'm a committer on both of those. And we actually want to have these be part of the platform by next year this time.
How different is Jakarta from Java?
Well, it's a lot of the specs from the original Java are there. They just got evolved with the new name. So Java persistence architecture is now just the Jakarta persistence. So yeah, but it's open source now. So anybody can contribute.
So I guess if they make a new command or something like that in Java, do you create a similar one in Jakarta so that they're compatible, or
well. Yeah, so
is it like MariaDB and
oh no,
where they basically are interchangeable, even though exactly the same.
Yeah, they are different because there's part of the branding is the namespace too. There's the Java EE had Java X enterprise whatever for a namespace, but that's also covered by Oracle branding. So now. One of the things they did was to come up with the Jakarta.enterprise. So the namespaces are totally different. So they're not going to be able to be compatible in a way, really. Yeah, it's quite interesting how that all evolved over the last few years. So, I could take a minute to talk about this. So I said they donated to the Eclipse Foundation in 2017. And so what everybody did was that there was a Jakarta EE working group, and they came up with Jakarta EE 8, which basically was a match of Java EE 8. So I guess technically to your question, that would kind of be the same.
Right.
And they were allowed to use the Java X namespace. And So, but from there was a big debate on how to evolve to the Jakarta namespace, right? And it was decided to do it all at once, and that was Jakarta EE9. Yeah. So, and then we're up to, they had a point release, 9.1, 10 came out in December, 11 is supposed to come out next year. So yeah, so it's been, it's been pretty cool, how everything has evolved. I'm sure there were more specs that were added to various tasks. There was a job on Jakarta Mail. There's 42. But yeah, I'm involved in these two. So yes. So yeah, so once I retire, I'm still going to be doing this kind of work. It's part of my passion. So, yeah, yes, exactly. And all right. So this is sort of the agenda for today. What Java is, right? How it evolved. Through the history of that. And then we can probably blow this away. Maybe it depends. And some of the features, because the last session was an overview on object-oriented programming. So, all right. So, and also too, yeah, we're going to get started with Java, talk about the Java class mechanism, how to implement classes, live demos, and such. So, all right. I love that first quote by the father of Java, James Gosling, who, at last I remember now, at 68 years old, at the time, he was hired by Amazon Web Services. So Java is C++ without guns, knives, and clubs. That's C++. That's another programming language. Another one, yeah. It's also object-oriented. So Java, yeah, because in C++ you have to handle memory management, where you don't have to in Java. So memory management is when you create something, a new object of some kind, it takes up memory. And then when you're done with it, you're supposed to clean that up so that you don't run out of memory when the application.
Well, it's automatically now.
Right.
The old days, you have actually.
Yeah, you run out of memory, there's core dumps, and there's pointers, and but then Sun Microsystems, which was purchased by Oracle in 2010, had this very, very well attributed quote here that Java is simple, object-oriented, distributed, interpreted, robust, secure, so dynamic language. Right. All the above. So, all right. Now, I mentioned James Gosling, right? So legend has it, and I think this is pretty, I've heard from people over the years that this is pretty much true, that he wanted the name oak for the language. And that the urban legend is that there was a big oak tree outside of his office. So, however, oak was used for something else. So, but anyway, the idea was for Java was for embedded systems, for a lot of, like your appliances, your remote controls, those kinds of things. But they had to be, architecture agnostic, and it had to be object oriented, right? So there's a phrase that they say about Java is write once, run everywhere, right? All right. So they did have a project called Star 7, which I believe was a remote control project. But they introduced Java at Sun World 1995, and I think that's the end of May 27. I forget. There was a browser at one time called Hot Java. A few years ago, I actually found a way to download it, but it didn't work too well, so it's been gone for all intents and purposes. So Java was actually a lot of these cute applets they used to have back in the day, which now have been phased out, I think, since Java 9. So, but yeah, so that's when Java was introduced to the world. All right, features of Java. It's object-oriented, just like C++ is, right? You can automatically generate documentation just by adding comments to your code. And then you run the Java doc utility, and it prints out everything, it generates the HTML for that. It's searchable, it has the list of classes, and then, all the methods that are defined, all by just commenting your code in a certain way. Quite useful. You notice I did a strike through applets. So comprehensive exception handling. C++ has it too. It's not as refined as Java's is. So you can have invocations target exception, you can have null pointer exception, you can have, all these nice short names. So, for handling exceptions, in your application. All right. Java database connectivity. So it's a generic way to access your databases. But there are other tools and utilities out there that actually do a better job of that. Right? So NoSQL, for example, right? Java persistence, Spring Data. You had the so I had records and CLS. Okay, so Java Beans. This is a way to create components, quote unquote, by having your class structured a certain way. So if you had a class that sports class had wins, losses, and ties, your getter methods would be get win, get loss, get tie, right? That kind of thing. So you have to have those, kinds of things for your class to make that a Java bean, right? And there are other attributes too. But more, I think I mentioned that was the last session, I think. Records and sealed classes. So records came out, I want to say the first preview, I'm not 100% sure, around Java 16. So this is a way of eliminating all the boilerplate you would have with the Java bean. So I think at some point, as more applications evolve towards the newer, the newer versions of the Java development kit, you might see those Java beans go away. Sealed classes. I'm kind of drawing a blank. I think it's a way to make it immutable, but don't hold me on that. But those are relatively new as well. All right. Enterprise Java, and then I struck out beans. Enterprise Java beans was out in the early 2000s. It was so complicated to the point that Spring Framework came out around 2004, I want to say, and everybody flocked to that because you were able to do the same thing at much easier. So that's actually been phased out. The old EJBs, as they call them, a lot of those libraries have been eliminated, and no pointers. Just talked about that a little earlier. All right. Okay. Questions here. I know you know who this is, right? But do you know who that is? This is Rodney Dangerfield, or Jack Cohn, or Roy Cohn was his real name. I forget. Yeah, that was his real name. But yeah. I don't know. Can you watch the movie Easy Money? Or back?
Fresh brought back to school.
Yeah. Oh yes, of course. Yeah. So, yeah, he's a character for sure. Yeah. All right. So, we'll go through the object-oriented programming real quick. This is just a review. I have all these slides on my website, which I'll show you later. All right, so there are four main attributes to object-oriented programming: encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, polymorphism. Correct. Yes. Poly means many, right, in Greek. Yeah. So I practice polymer physics at work. All right. So many polymer, many MERS, but those MERS are essentially things like ethylene, propylene, and they can make polyethylene, when you polymerize them. So yeah, so it's many of those molecules. Cool. All right, abstract data type is a user-defined data type. You have your built-in types like ints, booleans and such, right? This is important. So it's a use of objects through functions or methods without knowing the internal representation. And the example I like to use is a manual transmission, even an automatic transmission, right? You know how to, put it in park and go, or put it in drive and go. Manual transmission, but unless you're a mechanic, you don't know how that transmission works, right? So that's the example I like to use for that.
Black box. You don't know
Yeah, black box.
But data in, you get data out.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah. So you have interfaces and implementations. Functions that provide inside an abstract data type that allow access to data. So you, the developer, allow that. In your application, you have a class maybe, and then you want user input, for example. You can do that, and you can lock things out. Because you don't want people messing around with your code. And then the implementation is an underlying data structure. So you want to use a linked list versus something else. You know, that's part of that black box, right? Inside the transmission. Now, having said that, there is an interface keyword and an implements keyword in Java that mean kind of the same thing, but it has to do with methods, and we'll talk about that. Okay, and class and object can sometimes be used interchangeably, but these are notable differences. Now, a class, right, is a model itself, and you declare the attributes. You have a car class, attributes are the color, the size of the tire, that kind of thing. The behavior are those methods that you define to do certain things. You know, set the speed at 50 miles an hour, right? So that kind of thing, that's the behavior. And then an object is an instance of that class. So now that class becomes live, therefore becomes an object. And because it's live, it has state and behavior now. And you can have many unique objects of that same class. So you can have car as the type, car01 is the variable equals new car, and we'll talk about that. You can have car02 as a variable equals new car, right? So you have many instances of that. So. All right, so the advantages here basically, very important, that first one, I can't stress enough about, you know, the interface should remain unchanged if you decide to change the implementation. Because if I, you know, give you an application, you've been using it for 6 months. And, you know, by using, you know, your client code would be able to, you know, create constructors. Constructor has the parameters in a certain order. You know, if I change that order, now you're going to go back and change all your client code. So people won't be too happy with me, right? So because of that, it also encourages modularity, better maintainability, code reuse, and it's an emphasis on what and not how. All right, so here's some of the keywords here. So, all right, so you have the class keyword, new, right? Private, protected, public, and package. These are access specified. So a lot of things are public for the most part. Private is, you know, the outside world can't see it, right? And then protected is sort of a combination of both. And then package are, you can have packages in, you know, your structure of the application. And, you know, so package access, which is by default, everything in that particular folder would be able to be seen by each other, essentially. All right, try, throw, and catch. This is, I know baseball season coming, but it's got nothing to do with baseball. This is actually exception handling. All right, so you try, right, and have code inside that. And then you have to have a catchphrase after that, you know, to catch a certain exception. And then your application could potentially in there say, if the file doesn't open, throw this exception. And then finally is a keyword that's in Java, not in C++, but it, anything defined in there, in theory, has to be things you want closed in case something goes wrong. So you want files closed, databases closed, you know, all those resources, you know, you can actually do it that way. All right, final is synonymous to the, what was it, C++? I can't think of it, I use it all the time. Where you can't modify, you know? I can't think of the keyword right now, it's funny. All right, extends, you have base class, right, and derived classes. So you have a car class that could be a base class. And you can create a new class that you would make a subclass of that as view. All right. The derived class inherits everything from the base class. All right, that is our relationship, right? So when you want to do that, you say class Buick extends car. That's how you code your class that way. Implements has to do with an interface. An interface in Java is, you know, it's kind of like it's structured like a class, except you have methods in there that are just declared. There's no definition. So when you want to implement, have a regular class, or I like to call a concrete class, you say, so say car is an interface. So you say, class viewing implements car. But then now those methods defined in the interface now have to be defined. All right, so this is a good way of doing that. And there's interface right there, right? That's, class. An abstract is kind of part of that too, where you would maybe have a regular class and you can have a whole bunch of defined methods, but then maybe one method for whatever reason is not defined yet. Maybe because you want something down the road to define it. That's how you use the abstract class. So it has to be at least one. Oh, so class is a way you would model a chair or a car. For the chair, right? All right. Its attributes are gray color, right? Has steel for the frame, right? But guess what kind of behavior does it have? I don't know. Okay, there you go. Something like that.
So when you see a box on a website, right? Somebody has to define a page to be this color and it's going to have this outline, 20 pixels, and so you can predefine all of those attributes.
So it's like, okay.
Kinda. Well, that's a little too
Like,
right, but you're kind of grouping them all together. Right, so it's not just saying here's a box. In the case of the chair, you're saying the chair has a color and a style and a height and a width. Right, and how soft the seat is.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
so
you can have
all of those kind of grouped together.
So so it's supposed to have a Boolean in there as a thing. Is soft, true, yes or no, true or false.
Right, Boolean just or no, on or zero, true or false. It's one state or the other.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah. This is good. This is we'll see an example of all this anyway. So, all right, classes. Well, yeah, here we go. We just I forgot. All right, so a class is a user-defined abstract data type. Okay, so you, the developer, want to, build a application that does chairs or cars or sports or whatever. Right?
I'll build a chair.
There you go. So
I
if,
want to make a game where you shoot chairs at flying hedgehogs.
okay, so imagine now each of those hedgehogs being a class, well, an object of a class. So you have a hedgehog class, and whatever. Yeah. So same kind of thing.
All the different types of
Yeah. You can
flying
have.
hedgehogs, tank hedgehogs.
Because you need the object, because you define what the hedgehog looks like, but it may be in a place or moving it at a speed, right? So the object has so you created this class, and now you create the object, which might be different situations.
Pretty cool. This is good.
That was it. Not interface.
Yeah, interface is a little different, but it's written out. The syntax is kind of the same, except you use the interface keyword instead of the class keyword. So, and then also your methods are not defined.
Purpose is different. Your interface is what the person interacting with.
Forget
Trust me, you're always better than all of us.
it.
All right, so I don't know if you know C. If you,
I don't know. Say
okay,
it
so
now.
there was a struct mechanism in C.
Is
Which-
the third letter of alphabet.
It's programming language. One of the original.
May have been A to B if I remember.
Yeah, I don't know. I think C goes back to like the early 60s.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Kernigan and Richard, Brian Kernigan, David, no. Dennis Richard, sorry. Those are the two guys from Bell Labs that,
Right.
that, yeah.
A lot of languages, a lot of our languages are all based on C, so.
Yes. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Dennis Ritchie. Kernigan. I think Kernigan was here at TCF on this. That was kind of cool. Yeah. That was, and Oh, no, that's the other guy, Bjorn, who created C++, I have his book. So anyway, so the struct mechanism was a very simple thing in C, you can do that, except in the classes in C++ or Java, you can have a constructor, and this basically builds your object, right? And then you have data members and member functions, or otherwise known as methods.
The class describes that the chair looks like that.
Yep.
The struct is the chair.
No, the struct was, that's, the class mechanism was derived off of the struct mechanism. So to just use that as a starting point and then evolved it that way. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure you can, that C still around. I mean, you can use, yeah.
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 Actually, I think Apple phones will use C, a version of C#.
Oh, Objective C, I think I think, but I thought there was TypeScript too, but I'm not sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
the apps on like your watch are actually send it to C.
Yeah. So, all right, so
That could be your first programming project.
That is based on something that MS.
Okay.
Someone plays a game called Blackjack Frenzy, which is the dice shoot syrup and hedgehogs trying to steal your pancakes.
Okay. Sticky game.
exactly. So, all right. So you can have multiple constructors. So I like to call them a default constructor, which is generally called. It takes no parameters. Right. So sports.java is a class, right? But it has to have, when you define it, it has to have the class keyword in it. And then the constructor that takes a couple of variables is what I call a primary constructor. So a default constructor is used for, for creating sort of default values, right? All right. Abstract classes, one abstract method in the C++ world, take one, at least one pure virtual member function. That's the C++ version of that. All right. Oh yeah. And this in Java, you would use the abstract keyword, and here's the method name, right? No parameters, returns void, and it has public access. So that's like an abstract method. And then the same thing with C++, you assign it to 0, which is, I think, bizarre. It's so basically you could actually declare some behavior and have a different class related to it actually define it, because you might want things differently than in those other subclasses, like the hedgehogs, for example.
It's like I want to create a class that's R, but let me split time.
Yeah.
You want this 3 wheels.
Yeah, exactly.
One of those, they're like off-roading vehicles.
Oh, that's what I was thinking of. It's abstract, the differentiate, like applying hedgehog.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Maybe I'll use a chin that's their
So, so this is a UML diagram. UML is Unified Modeling Language. It basically gives you a way to describe your base class and derived classes. All right. So sports is a base class. Right. It has the data members of team name, win, loss, win, loss, and calculate percent. All right. So these are derived classes. All right. And these are empty. This one's empty, but a derived class inherits everything. And that's part of inheritance in object-oriented programming. So baseball has all that stuff, right? Football and basketball, since they have a tie, they don't play, 75 innings like baseball. Now football has all that and that.
Actually, basketball does not have ties.
Nope. Oh, since
They
when?
keep playing overtimes until somebody's winning.
Did that change recently?
No, it's always been that.
Oh, okay.
Football has ties.
Yes.
College football does not. They'll keep playing until they break the tie. The NFL is slap time.
Yeah, I know in the standings. I guess I don't pay attention to basketball all that much.
Basketball does not.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll have to update that. Really? Oh, geez. I'm a little behind on this.
They do shootouts now instead of.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like in soccer. Yeah. So like in soccer, I guess. So anyway, so that describes that. All right. So here's the.
That data type is an integer because you can't have two wins, right? 2 wins, 3 wins, 4 wins. Right, but then that's calculated.
Yeah, like the percentage. So the percentage doesn't get passed into the constructor because you have to meet the wins and the losses in order to calculate it. So yeah. So that would be a type float or type double, you know, instead of int. So here's sort of a breakdown of a class, and I thought this was a cool cartoon, so I thought I'd put it there. So here, public class, hello world. All right. Now this syntax is an entry point to any Java application. All right. So it's got to be a main that takes in an array of string, similar to C and C++, except the syntax is a bit different. All right. System is like this, you know, overall system, you know, type that's available. And then you print out to the screen this way, and then you just type in these, you know, just type in whatever you want to display on the screen. String is an array of characters. Yeah.
That makes sense.
So, you know, my name Mike would be four elements in an array. You know, 1 letter each in each box. Yeah. So they call that a string. Has to be the what alphabet? There are character types out there.
Kind of like write in Russian.
Yeah, no, I think there's a UTF.
Yeah, no, there are other character sets of just that.
Yeah, I think Java supports.
So,
Oh, there's a whole bunch of yeah.
and critics, rooms,
These are great questions.
what's that?
These are great questions. That's great. Yeah, one of the things we do in our Java group is we Oracle has this Java in education to encourage, you know, teaching at schools and teaching Java, or you know. So our group, we do that. So one of my co-directors, they went to Madison High School to give a couple of talks and stuff like that. We meet at Drew University, so we encourage the college students, you know, to attend our meetings. So that's part of our, you know, doing that. And it's a great thing. So
I was telling you, I learned basic, right?
Yeah.
In 78, I was in 5th grade. It was an after-school program, you didn't have a monitor. You had a keyboard attached to the printer, essentially.
oh, okay, yeah,
It was running off a mainframe at the high school.
yeah, awesome, yeah.
So,
Change like the shared.
yeah, that's just.
So
Okay.
you remember punch cards, I'm sure, right?
I missed out on the punch.
Oh, I was there, so maybe I'm a bit older than you, but yeah. So I remember in high school, we had the IBM machine with the punch cards.
I just
Yeah.
missed out on punch cards.
So-
So that was my first experience with computers. Was that terminal with, you know, with the printer, not a screen.
Right.
And even I had an Apple II Plus. So in the class room before, they were talking about floating point, right? And the basic that was on there was integer basic, didn't even have floating point. And I probably my last time here at the show was coming here. They used to have the big vendor.
Yes, yeah.
Because if you wanted to buy cheap equipment, that was the only place to do it.
Yeah.
It was on Amazon, right? So I bought a language card so I could load in floating point basic.
Nice. I do. Is it 12? What is it? Oh, geez, yeah. All right. Well, this is good. I know these slides are available on my website, but so even if we don't go through them today, I mean, this is great to, you know, answer questions.
Yeah, it's just getting some understanding.
So, all right. So here's sort of a way you could that we could implement what we just, you know, the previous screen in the URL diagram. All right. So you notice I have public class sports. Right. So the whole class itself is public. However, the team name and the number of wins. Now, this is just sort of the short version. Private, that's the thing. So private, so, it's not available, immediately available to the outside world. You have to, you can get access to it by using this get win method and returns that win variable up there. Now, you can do a set win where it allows the user to actually make a change, but that's up to you, the developer, to do that. So you want them private. This is part of encapsulation. What's that? It's, well, any client code that you write. So you have, so you have a sports.java file, a baseball.java file, and then you can have a, sportsact.java file, which works with all this. Let's do let's see. What do we?
The get win, is that a function?
Yes.
Or is that just using win variable?
Well, see, this is part of the Java beans thing I mentioned here. Part of a Java bean and is basically having you precede the name of the variable or the data member with get,
Yeah, okay, so
and
there's
then
a
capitalize the W.
also, right?
Yes,
Okay,
and there's a set version of that, and then a lot of times it's for a Boolean, it's is, like if there's an empty, like a Boolean empty, for example, it wouldn't apply in this case, but you would say is empty, and whether it's true or false.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, database, sets per min.
And then here's how you make that connection. Class baseball extends sports, all right? And then you have a baseball.
Parents. Parents, sports.
Yeah, it basically makes that connection as for inheritance. So just like you inherit from your mom and dad, all right? This is the same kind of thing here, right? So baseball inherits all that stuff from sports. So we've made that connection by using the extends keyword. All right, object creation. You said we only have 15 minutes left? No. I think 12:15. That sounds about right. 11. Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, yeah. No, I'll actually, my work colleague will come in after this. So, all right. So you would create a new object, and maybe it's best. Let's see. All right. Just a couple of things. I'm going to show you my example here, but basically the latest version is coming out on Tuesday, JDK 20. Java has gone to a 6-month release cycle since JDK 9. Which I think it was around 2017. So every 2 years in March and September, every twice a year in March and September, you get a new version. And this allows for like these preview versions. So right now, if you want to be able to experiment with it, they don't encourage you to put it in production, but so they'll have the name of what they call JDK enhancement process, or JEP, with a number, and then that'll have the name that says records preview, records second preview, that kind of thing, and then it'll finally go be full. So that's kind of what they did back since 2017. So
What does Java run on? On a Linux system or what operating system?
well, you can have once you download it, you have a JDK, Java virtual machine on your laptop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's interpreted.
So it runs on its own.
Yep. All right, so this is all working with Java and how to do things. Let's see. This is all has to do with class names and such, right?
So you have to write the application and then compile it?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's honestly there.
Oh yeah, there's Java C and but then I have these, a lot of people use these build tools, Gradle and Maven. So I was so when you do this, right? Yeah, you can do this on the command line, but the build tools I use on the command line do a lot of this for you anyway. It'll build, you can run it, you can create generate documentation, whatever. And to be honest, I have not used these, and every year I have to try to go back and refamiliarize myself on how to do it with the class path. So yeah, let's see. Oh, all right, demo. Yeah, let's wrap up with the demo here. So
I guess processor 0, so doesn't understand, it's variable, right? So the compiler converts the principal variable into sort of the processor to understand. Some languages will compile on the fly, so as it's running each command, it'll compile it. Others, you break the application, you say, okay, compile this, then run it. So I run Clipper, which is a file language, you have to run it, compile it, then or develop it, compile it, run it. Then if there's a problem, if you're troubleshooting, you have to go through the whole process all over again.
All right, so here's a sports class right here. You saw a part of this on the slide, but here's the whole thing. I kind of like to do it this way. I use the setter methods. So my default constructor will have a set team and give it the generic team string and then all zeros. Now you're going to ask the question about dividing by 0, and I handle that. So, and my primary constructor basically will take all these parameters and then pass them into their respective setter methods. And then the getter method basically returns the team name, and so on, right? This is a cute little trick I like. Java claims no pointers, but there's a this keyword that is a reference. That means the object that's active has this pointer or a reference to it. So when you say this.team, it refers to the data members you declared up top, and then the team being passed here is this right-hand side of the assignment. So it avoids having to come up with with a different name, which I always found annoying. So, but all right. So let's see, get percentage. So if my default constructor, you can't divide by 0. That is a runtime error, right? So because that's impossible to divide by 0, right? So yeah. So so basically you do a check here. It says that both win and loss equals 0. We'll just set it to 0. But if not, then just create the this is the calculation for it. All right. And then baseball been very, very good to me. That's an oldie but goodie. All right, so classic. So yeah, here's baseball extends sports, right? Oh, this super method, this is sort of something that's built in that basically says, hey, go to my parent and get everything. Okay. Yeah. So it's the same thing here. So since this is the default constructor, here I do the same thing. Call super and then just pass in the same variables. Now you notice what I did here. I stuck in a tie for baseball. Yeah. So, but that because at the time I thought it was the only. Now here's a display method that it can that you put out that could be different in a different class. So I'll have a get tie in hockey or basketball and all that, and so that's sort of this what they call polymorphism. It's the same method name, but you actually do things slightly different. So
You're getting all that almost as it's correct.
I don't know if it's an array. It's just calling those getter methods and then putting them out and formatting them.
Okay.
Yeah. So in my main application, right? So here's that, here's the main public static void main, right? I created a new sports app. I displayed a header, which is just for formatting. So I created New York Mets. So I notice I use sports and do baseball because now we're programming to interfaces, right? Or generic stuff. And then pass in the parameters there. And then, believe it or not, my wife and I are native New Jerseyans. We like the New Orleans Saints. Because we go there a number of times a year. So anyway, yeah. So then you call the respective display methods. And when you run it means I have to stop sharing again. That's right. Oh, yeah, this is old. So, that's right, the Brooklyn. Yeah. Where is my terminal? Here you are. Share. This was from the last class, so let's see. CD presentations, TCF, right? Sports. Yeah, here we go. That. Yeah, okay. This Gradle, yeah. Run. Yeah, there we go. So basically, you can see the formatting differences here, where you have baseball, we have just a win and loss, and then a winning percentage, and then you have all the ties, you know, with the winning percentage. So, but and then Gradle's complaining because there's Gradle 8 just got released though about a month or so ago. So Gradle is another build tool that you could use. So you know, I ran Gradle run as a compile, but if you want to actually start from scratch, you can do Gradle clean compile or compile Java. It's different than Maven, and then you get a fresh build. So pretty cool. So yeah, so that's how that worked. And we'll just a couple of quick slides at the end. Where are you? Where are you? There you are. Okay. And there were some. So yeah, there's some IDEs. I was using IntelliJ right here. There's some others here. These numbers are updated. This morning I did that. This is my Java group. There's, you know, we work with the New York Java folks too for speakers when they come out from someplace. So they'll speak at our group one night and then go to New York the next. You know, so and they've been around about a few years, maybe 6 years longer than we have. So there's the Philly jug, and then the Jersey City jug, and then Garden up in Albany. Couple of books. You may recognize the name Barry Bird. He is speaking here today, and he is also one of the co-directors of the Garden State Java group. So that's my contact info. I have the slides on the portfolio page. Just go to Introduction to Java, and you know the page is kind of old. I will say my Java group page is much more modern than. And then GitHub source code is right here. You can clone the repository that you want. And with that, it's kind of early in the day and you can't have any. So, not until you. Technically 21.
8.5 years.
But yeah. So anyway, that's yeah. Thanks for coming out. I'm glad we had a little bit more of an intimate, to answer more questions in detail.